Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story, tensions spiking in the Taiwan Strait, the U.S. sending a warship near Taiwan, and the island pledging more drills hours after a speech from the Chinese premier.
China is ramping up the military preparation for an invasion of Taiwan, and so it is edging towards more of the military invasion scenario.
California now a hotspot for Chinese immigrants entering America. But why are they leaving China? More on what they've told us and how they navigate their way to the U.S. A fresh clash at sea with water cannons fired in a subsequent collision. The Philippines again accusing Chinese vessels of dangerous maneuvers. And a former Chinese executive is demanding that his first son, Hunter Biden, return $1 million given to him for legal services. Find out why. A warning sign for Taiwan written between the lines during China's most important political event of the year. During Beijing's two sessions meetings, the Chinese premier broke away from standard language in his speech. Different than usual, he left out the term peaceful reunification when describing the regime's ambition to take control of Taiwan. That's as Beijing announced it would boost defense spending by over 7% this year. David Zhang is a China commentator and host of the show China Insider. Here's what his take on Beijing's defense budget is.
The 7.2% is in line with recent years in terms of the spending increase, so it's not an extraordinary boost. However, it is also a sign that following the 2024 Taiwan election, that China is ramping up the military preparation for an invasion of Taiwan, and so it is edging towards more of the military invasion scenario.
The Chinese Communist Party sees Taiwan as part of China, despite never having controlled it. It has also pledged to take control of Taiwan by force if necessary. Now, Taiwan's fate is hanging in the balance. Washington is the island's top weapons supplier, but the U.S. has never made clear whether it would defend Taiwan if China invades. What could Beijing's next step toward Taiwan look like? Annual speeches from the top brass in the party may offer some hints. The Chinese premier left out terms like peaceful reunification to describe China's Taiwan policy, marking a change from last year's meeting and other official speeches. Instead, he said Beijing would be firm in advancing the cause of China's reunification. Right now, China's military budget totals over $200 billion. It's the second highest in the world, trailing right behind the United States. The same day as the Chinese premier's speech, Taiwan's defense minister said the island would hold more missile drills in response to, quote, the enemy's situation. The U.S. Navy also released a statement saying an American missile destroyer recently traveled through the Taiwan Strait, the body of water separating Taiwan and mainland China. Japan is also reacting to the news.
China's military trends are a matter of serious concern to Japan and the international community. They mark the greatest strategic challenge to date in ensuring the peace and stability of Japan and the international community.
David Zhang points to Beijing's contradictory messaging that it's prioritizing national security and trying to attract foreign investment.
Just like 2023, national security it's at the forefront, mentioned 28 times in the latest speech. And so you see this focus has driven away foreign investments. Consumption and demand in China is at an all-time low. It had a crashing stock market.
China also set a big goal for economic growth, 5%, but its economy is reeling, and even its premier acknowledged that the goal would prove challenging. The U.S. southern border now top concern for American voters. At the same time, numbers of Chinese nationals illegally crossing into the country is seeing a steep rise. NTD's Ariane Pasdar spoke to some of them in San Diego, California, to find out why they're coming. Let's take a look.
Zhang Ming is from northeast China.
Because China's economy has not been doing so well in the past 2 years. Frankly, the economy is not doing so well. It's not as good as we had hoped. It's definitely not comparable to the United States, to be honest. I traveled from Turkey to here, crossing through about 10 countries.
China's economy is showing signs of deflation. That's after an almost 3-year market halt when Beijing imposed draconian lockdown measures during the COVID-19 pandemic. Many Chinese people are struggling to make ends meet in the sluggish economy, but others say it's more than financial problems driving them to leave.
Because I feel that there is a lot of pressure in China, coming from various aspects. One aspect is the economic pressure. But more importantly, the pressure mainly comes from the political side. I feel that in China, there is no freedom of speech, no human rights, no emphasis on universal values, and no freedom of religion. It is an atheistic region, which contradicts my values because I myself am a Christian. If I were to stay there, I would feel extremely uncomfortable in such an environment.
Wu has been in the U.S. for 3 months now.
The current situation in China, under the leadership of the country's leaders, is deteriorating rapidly. You know, it's really in dire straits, and the ordinary people are all complaining. You know, this is the scene I see in China. In my opinion, the fundamental reason for this is the lack of faith.
In the face of pressure from Chinese authorities and pro-Beijing Chinese nationalists, Wu says it's difficult to share personal opinions inside China, especially about sensitive topics like organ harvesting.
In our Christian perspective, organ harvesting is what the Satan would do. It's devilish behavior, inhumane and atrocious. But in the environment here, you can't speak out. If you do, it could affect your freedom and personal safety. I feel like I must come out because it's like there's a part in the Bible, you know, the Exodus story, and I feel like it's sort of a replica of what's happening now. I think in the book of Revelation, there's a description of a red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns in the east. I think this is not only a description of a period of time but also of our current environment. It actually refers to this era, and I feel like we should come out from there.
Wu Chang made sculptures for a living when he was in China. He spent 2 months trekking to the U.S., crossing numerous countries and spending about $14,000.
Next, an update on a border-related national security concern from Todd Bensman. He's a senior national security fellow at the Center for Immigration Studies and is shining a light on the potential for Chinese spies to infiltrate the U.S. through porous borders. Here's what he had to say.
Well, the situation at the border is that we are at a catastrophic daily number of about 6,500 a day coming across border-wide. Probably somewhere on the order of 45 to 50% of them are not from Mexico or Central America. They're from 170 other countries, including from China, which has, we've seen about 44,000, 45,000 just in the last few years cross the southern border from China. And also from every nation of the Middle East and every nation of Africa and Eurasia.
Yeah, and Todd, this is a massive influx that we're seeing with CBP data showing over 7 million encounters at the southwest border since President Biden assumed office. What are the kinds of Chinese nationals that you're meeting on the trail in Mexico to the U.S.?
Well, I don't know a whole lot about them to the extent that I've been able to communicate with them on like a cell phone translator app. They seem coached. They never seem willing to really kind of divulge anything about their trip or how much money they paid or where they're from or much of anything about them. They're young. They tend to be physically fit, well educated, very, very well equipped, well dressed, and on top of the situation all the way through. I think the majority of them are going to be economic migrants who are taking advantage of an opportunity to get into the United States, that without a doubt some percentage of them are going to be spies or agents working for the Chinese Communist Party.
A collision between a Chinese ship and a Philippine vessel in the South China Sea. The Philippines said Tuesday that Chinese Coast Guard ships fired water cannons at Filipino vessels. The boats had been on their way to resupply troops at the nearby Scarborough Shoal, close by the Philippines, which China claims as its own. Filipino officials say the water cannon shattered the boat's windshield and its crew suffered minor injuries. Manila said the Chinese Coast Guard's dangerous maneuvers led to a collision between the Philippine and the Chinese vessels. Both China and the Philippines claim portions of the South China Sea. Beijing claims almost all of it as Chinese territory, including the section the Philippines considers its exclusive economic zone. A 2016 international court ruled China's claim invalid. Incidents like this aren't a first. Beijing has been ramping up aggression in the area, spraying Filipino boats with water cannons and putting up floating barriers to block Filipino boats from accessing the shoal. Hunter Biden back in the spotlight over payments he allegedly received from China. The younger Biden reportedly got $1 million from Chinese firm CEFC for legal representation of its employee, Dr. Patrick Ho, who now wants it back. Ho is threatening legal action unless reimbursed, claiming Biden provided no legal services. A letter from Ho's law firm demands termination of the attorney-client agreement and repayment within 7 days. Funds were transferred from CEFC China to a joint venture firm, Hudson West III, and then to Hunter Biden's private firm, Owasco. Ho was convicted of bribery in 2019. He served a 3-year sentence before being deported to Hong Kong. A surprising end to a 30-year political tradition in China, which gave foreign governments and investors insight into the world's second-largest economy. A spokesman has announced that China's Premier Li Qiang will not hold a media briefing after this year's National People's Congress, known as the Two Sessions. What's more, the usual press conferences are also canceled for the rest of the term, ending in 2027. That's unless a special circumstance comes up. Since the early 90s, China has actively shared details about its politics and policies during this briefing to attract foreign investors and boost trade. The decision to scrap it comes at a time when China is struggling to revive its troubled economy. It's under major pressure, facing a property crisis, deepening inflation, a stock market rout, and mounting debt among its local branches of government under the communist regime. The annual Two Sessions marks when China's rubber-stamp legislature and top advisory body convene. Worth noting, delegates at the meeting have little power since policy decisions are made in closed-door sessions by elite Communist Party members. That's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We're now sharing a shortened version of our program here after being demonetized for 3 years. If you'd like to support us, consider donating. Find us at donorbox.org/China-in-focus or subscribe to our partner platform, Epic TV, where you can watch our full episodes. Here's what to look out for in our second half. Coming up, dropping demand for iPhones in China. Apple seeing a plunge in its iPhone sales in the country as rival Huawei grows more popular. Why is the Biden administration taking aim at Chinese-made electric cars driving on U.S. roads? Get the inside scoop from an auto expert.
A lot of that data is being collected. Is it being reported back to China? That we don't know.
And a deeper look at the newly elected member in Britain's parliament, George Galloway, and his views on Israel, communism, and China. More on that after the break here on China in Focus. Thanks for watching China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. See you tomorrow.